Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is our EV portion. I'm Pete Gruber.
Mark Schaffner, good morning and welcome everybody.
This is actually take two, so we just rehearsed this a moment ago thinking we were live. So we are started to point out, are we okay, guys? I saw the screen flicker.
Yep, you're good.
Okay. The image behind us actually is one of the topics today, the shift in Lucid. And we'll talk about that at some length, but it looks like they're going into the parts business and licensing business.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to that one. And there are lots of good topics today going on in the auto industry and the EV industry overall.
We do, and I've got an image here that we can pop up. This is a couple of Japanese automakers, Nissan and Honda. And we were talking earlier about how these are family-run companies, and I'll bet you those are the family members.
They probably are. Yeah, and it looks like Nissan and Honda's merger is in its death throes. It doesn't look like it's going to happen.
And this particular article, the headline is Nissan is looking for a new partner as the $58 billion Honda merger is collapsing. What this is all about is Nissan has pulled the merger talks with Honda, ending plans to form the world's third largest car alliance. The deal apparently fell apart over disagreements as Honda wanted Nissan to operate as a subsidiary. Now, this sounds like ego speak to me, does it not?
It really does. We were talking before the show. The Nissan family has a lot of pride in their brand and in their cars.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in the 70s when Nissan was first coming into the U.S., they refused to use the Nissan name because they didn't want their name associated with anything second class, and the U.S. was kind of considered second class to them.
Really?
So they started in the early 70s selling Datsuns.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the Datsun brand got big and everything, they eventually relented and decided to use their own brand.
I think they miscalculated because the Datsun brand, from what I remember, was a very popular Japanese car. It was during a point in time when we had a gun held to our head with OPEC, with the oil embargo, and people were flocking to energy-efficient, ICE cars. And Datsun was a very popular brand. I remember Hemi engine cars being dumped, literally. Yeah, and then later on, 30, 40 years later, they became collectible and, extremely expensive. But nobody wanted the gas guzzlers back then. They wanted those little Japanese, high-mileage cars.
Well, yeah, and Datsun had hit the market just exactly the right time. They had just gotten into the American market around 1970, 71, and were just starting to sell their cars, and they were selling them based on the idea that they were cheap and efficient.
Right. Yeah.
And nobody wanted cheap and efficient until the oil embargo came, and then you couldn't get a Datsun.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a little bit of a caveat in this article that says, however, the two automakers are still open to working together on EV software and battery tech. This was apparently a $60 billion tie-up to create the third largest automaker alliance in the world. And talks between these two are still going on, but this now leaves Nissan to drive its turnaround all by itself.
Yeah, Nissan is, you think about it, Nissan had the Leaf.
Yeah.
So you had the Tesla Roadster in 2008, and I think it was 2009, the Nissan came out with the Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been more of a city commuter car, but you would think with that kind of advantage that Nissan had in the marketplace that they could have done something with it.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, Toyota has their share of problems too. They, the Prius that came out in the late last century and early this century could have been the genesis of the EV revolution.
Absolutely.
But they missed that. And now their latest interest in hydrogen technology just leaves you shaking your head and, wondering, how can these giants, go so far off track?
The two words I happen to think of to start with are pride and arrogance.
Yeah, yeah, good point. So they say that talks between the two automakers have been complicated by growing differences, and Nissan balked as this was a departure from what was originally framed as a merger of equals. So there's your clue that this is ego based.
Yep.
The numbers indicate something like this. Honda has a market value of 7.92 trillion yen. Well, you may ask how many dollars is that? That's $51.9 billion. It's more than 5 times bigger than Nissan, which is 1.44 trillion yen. I had to look that one up. That's $9.4 billion.
Okay.
So it's definitely smaller. But anyway, we'll have to wait to see how how this evolves in Japan. We've got some comments coming in. Martin Woods from the UK, welcome. Thanks for joining
Good
us.
afternoon, Martin.
Stephen Rose from YouTube, from Boulder City, Nevada.
And good morning, Stephen. Thank you guys for saying where you're coming from as well.
Right. All right. Another interesting article here. Let me bring up, I think I have a picture of this. And this one made the news last week. Tesla Shanghai's mega factory officially launches operations. You can see the massive size of this plant. Now, this is in the Lingang Chinese area, and but they call it the Shanghai Mega Factory. This is Tesla's first offshore facility that is dedicated to the production of battery storage products. The other one is in Lathrop, California.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla's previous factories located outside the United States are Giga Berlin and, of course, Mexico at some point in time when that comes up.
Right.
This Shanghai mega factory is capable of producing 10,000 megapacks per year, which is equal to about 40 gigawatt per hour per year. And again, it joins the Lathrop, California factory as a producer of grid-scale massive batteries. They did hint in Q4 of 2025, Tesla, that a third mega factory is being planned. Didn't say where yet, I guess.
I wonder if this is going to be the rumored India plant. They've talked about India. They've talked about southern Spain and Europe. And those are two of several places they've talked about.
Yeah.
But the speed at which this factory has been built is just mind-blowing.
Yeah. The start date was May of 2024 last year, just the beginning of summer. And it was completed at the end of the year in late December. That was a 7-month build. And you take a look at the size of this. I don't know of anywhere on the planet where you could build something this large in 7 months.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't either. It's absolutely stunning to see that big of a facility go up that quickly. I mean, here in the United States, it may take 6 months for people to move into the already finished building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're talking 7 months to build the building in total, 2 months, a month and a half to equip the building in total and move in.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, at this rate, it looks like Tesla's success is guaranteed, and it's going to be interesting to see what other parts of the world, what kind of speed we have there. Mexico is still dragging, from what I understand.
Yeah,
and Germany, of course, was probably the worst example. Over 2 years to get Giga Berlin running, and I don't have the stats here, but I don't think Giga Berlin is anywhere near as large as this one in Shanghai. If you have information, please feel free to chime in. Let us know. YouTube, Jay Shank is joining us. He says hello from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Thank you
Good morning,
for joining.
Jay. Thank you.
So it'd be interesting to see. China will begin to produce these mega packs, and of course, that's going to be a real gain for supply chain issues because now they'll be able to address European markets with these large battery packs.
Right. Well, the United States won't get the direct benefit of these batteries. Australia, that is, which is one area of the world that's gone all in on battery storage to enhance their electric grid, and Europe don't have the restrictions on Chinese-made product that we in the U.S. have.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see a secondary benefit because now the U.S. made batteries from Lathrop will tend to stay more in North America.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Another image to throw up here. This was an article. I believe this is electric. I don't have the listed here, but the headline goes something like this: First electric Ferrari to be revealed on 9th of October of this year. It'll be revealed but not available for purchase until 2026.
Okay.
And of course, this is not Ferrari's first attempt into moving into EVs because of the LaFerrari, which is a hybrid, which
Right.
has an electric drivetrain, which we are very familiar with, by the way, having worked on a few of them. And it is an engineering marvel, but certainly not efficient, because when you try to combine a ICE drivetrain, not just your average commuter grocery getter drivetrain, but a performance drivetrain, a B12, like is in a LaFerrari, with all of that plumbing and all of that excellence, and an electric drivetrain in the same car in the size of a sports car. It is a phenomenal engineering challenge. They pulled it off, but serviceability, of course, is a challenge, put it that way.
Yeah, definitely a challenge, but you got to give them some kudos for even being able to pull it off.
Yeah, for sure. A few more comments here, and then we can go into this article.
Yes. On Facebook, Juan Pablo Moreno says, cheers from Viña del Mar in Chile.
In Chile, yes. Thanks for joining us.
And then Martin Woods on YouTube asks, did you check out the Chicago Auto Show? There's lots of EVs there, including Tesla, Lucid, Rivian, Polestar, among others.
A lot of people enjoyed that. I did not. My ability to travel these days, as busy as I am, is constrained.
Yes, yes.
And Facebook, Juan Pablo Marino says, is it true that Tesla is planning to install a battery factory in Chile? We are not aware of that, but that would be an excellent place to expand because other than Mexico right now, Monterrey, nothing is going on in South America.
I did look it up because I was curious myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Google says Tesla is working on a Chilean energy company to install large-scale battery systems in a couple of places I'm not able to pronounce in Chile, called Sildia Solar, which will use Tesla's Megapack battery system. That's just what Google's AI is saying.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So there is news. Well, Juan, we will report as soon as we get more information. And yeah, that would be wonderful to have something in your backyard.
Yeah, and thinking about the amount of lithium that's in Chile, it would make sense. I think it's still in the rumor stage, though, as to whether they're going to build an actual factory there.
Yeah, Bolivia and Chile are very close together, so
yes,
that would work. Transport and all of that. So what's going on with Ferrari? All right. Well, we all knew that Ferrari was going to have to plunge into the EV business because they're not going to be able to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
The world, the countries, the states, they have mandates. 2035 is one of the cutoff dates that's very popular around the planet right now, where you won't be able to manufacture an ICE car anymore. And, I was reading an article this morning, again, talking about the warming trend on the planet.
Right.
By the end of the year, based on the trend that we're on, even if it doesn't accelerate, which most likely it will because these are logarithmic scales, they're not linear.
Right.
With a linear scale, by the end of the year, the Sahara Desert will be flooded. There will be no more polar ice caps. I mean, we're getting into some dangerous territory.
Wow.
And of course, the coastal, the water elevations are going to be flooding coastal areas that are now possibly even cities like New York, Manhattan, that type of thing. So it's absolutely essential that something is done. And of course, the EV market has been identified as one of the things that may save us. My gosh, look at all the people coming in.
From Facebook, Din Than says, hi, sirs.
Welcome.
Welcome. And then PYG KLB is in here from sunny, cold Western Oregon.
Ah, okay. Well, you would have liked it here in Phoenix over the last week. We had the Phoenix Open, and we had highs in the high 70s. And of course, it doesn't rain here. It's been like 10 or 11 months without rain.
It's been a long time.
But of course, the offset is summer. YouTube, Rahat Salvan says, I have this podcast playing in the background while I'm under my Model S doing a coolant delete on my large drive unit. Love my Tesla Model S. Love the Gruber community. Keep up the great work. Rahat, we did a coolant delete yesterday, and we had a Model S up on our 4-post lift, and we built a jig that actually holds the entire large drive unit. And it worked out wonderfully. We were able to support it, raise the 4-post lift, drop the battery lift that this jig was on, and then maneuver that large drive unit out. And 2 hours later, it was back up underneath the car because of the tooling that we
Wow,
developed.
very nice. I was looking forward to hearing how that ended up working.
Yeah, that was Claude's car. So they're putting it back together now. And then one of our Tesla contacts was there yesterday as well. And he looked at the thing we built and he says, if you modified it so that you put a curved section underneath that held the motor and inverter, you wouldn't have to take the cradle out of the car. You could drop just that. So we're still trying to figure out how to do that. But the point is, tools are being developed, and it's mostly custom because it's not anything you can go on Amazon and buy or buy from Tesla for that matter.
Well, that's one of the things that sets us apart is our ability to just learn and grow. It's exciting times over there at Gruber Motors.
It is.
Hey, Pete?
Yeah.
Real quick, can you explain the pros and cons of doing a coolant delete on a Model S? We did a shorts a couple weeks ago, and when I posted it, we actually had quite a few questions.
We
on
did,
that.
yes.
Can you quick? Yeah.
Well, the short story is there is a seal inside the unit, the inverter and the motor unit, that with age wears out, and it's internal, and there's pressurized coolant that seal is preventing from getting into the inverter. The inverter is a number of electronic boards that certainly don't like any kind of moisture or coolant.
Sure.
And when you get coolant ingress into that inverter, it will kill that large drive unit or that inverter. It gets very expensive, a few $1,000s, and it turns out that the thermal management works just fine even without running coolant through that particular portion of the drivetrain. So they're in the aftermarket group, they developed what's called a coolant delete, which is a bypass plate. And by mounting that, you no longer now are susceptible to any kind of coolant leaks in the inverter.
Yeah, I remember we have had a number of cars early on that we were trying to figure out how to get them to run properly, and it was because there was coolant that had gotten into the drive unit.
Yep. So anyway, that's the short story. Thank you, Aaron. And Cass, Juan Pablo Marino is asking, he missed the answer to the Tesla building a battery factory. Do you want to reiterate that?
Yeah, for sure. So I looked it up on Google, and Google says Tesla is working on an energy company in Chile. They are going to install large-scale battery systems in a couple of different regions in Chile, and then they're going to call it Celda Solar, and it's going to use the Megapack battery system.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Excellent.
And so now they're not talking about anything being built there though, just the solar systems.
Just the solar system. The project will store energy from the sun during the day to use at night, and then it had a couple of extra technical stuff around it. The project will use over 200 Tesla Megapacks, which will store 3.9, I'm assuming megawatts, because it's a giant M and a giant W.
Yep, that's megawatt.
And the project operation is mid 2026. It's going to cost around $260 million US dollars.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cass.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another YouTube, Anthony Wolf. That's my grandson. One of them. I have many. And he says, wow, mind blown. Thanks for joining us, Tony. So anyway, continuing with the Ferrari article, I've got a picture to post up here, and this is a spy shot of some testing that's going on at Ferrari, and it's not confirmed, but this may be that EV Ferrari. And anyway, Here's what the CEO of Ferrari says. His name is Benedetto Vigna. He says Ferrari will reveal more of our future on the 9th of October this year at the Capital Markets Day. He stopped short of confirming any more details, apparently, but said it would be presented in a unique and innovative way. Well, the rest of the story here is that they will be rolling out 6 of these cars in 2025 and then start production in 2026 or make them available to customers. Yet to be determined, the body style, that is. And they say it's possible that Ferrari could seek to emulate the characteristic dynamic qualities of its combustion cars by centralizing the mass of batteries in the chassis. And the combustion cars they're talking about there are the, let me get the, there we go. Oh, it doesn't say. All right. Well, anyway, if you find that, Mark, we can tell them what they're trying to emulate. But Vigna also said that he expects the new EV to appeal to both existing Ferrari customers and tech-savvy newcomers to the brand. Well, that's where I take issue. I was a Ferrari owner for 23 years. And Ferrari owners have a certain expectation. In fact, I was in the club for 23 years. I was even the president of the Ferrari club for a few years. Mm-hmm. And I know these guys well. I know what they're looking for. And the guys that I hung with and enjoyed Ferrari experiences with, such as supercar runs and, all of that, would not be caught dead in an SUV like this. It is not the Ferrari vibe that the average Ferrari buyer is looking for.
No.
So I'm sure there may be a new breed of people that come in and start driving Ferraris. Let me show you what they may look like then. We've got this prototype. Here is a Ferrari FF station wagon. And when this came out, let me bring that over here so Jesse can bring that up on the screen. When this came out, all of us in the Ferrari camps kind of shook our heads and said, what were they thinking? And I don't know of anybody in my group that bought one of these. This is a 4-seater. It is a 4-seater Ferrari. And, I'm sure there will be a market. I'm not sure how big for cars like this.
It gives Datsun 240Z vibes because like the hood is long, but the body is short, kind of like an old Datsun.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's what they think it is. Like, I don't think it's going to take off the way that they want it to. Because anytime I think of a Ferrari, I think of like a real slick sports car, not
a 2-seater.
Yeah, like a 2-seater, not a 4-seater.
Right, and a convertible. And, low to the ground, no power steering, no power brakes, none of those creature comforts. You want to be able to feel the road. You want that to be a sports car. You want to become one with the car.
Right.
And that's what happens with a true sports car. You start adding all of these these bells and whistles, and now you're trying to make a sporty sedan, and there are plenty of those to go around that you can choose from. Let me show you something else. This is a picture of a Lamborghini Urus. And this actually was in our shop Friday last week. Now, I would never disparage a customer's car because this is a customer. What we ended up doing was, if you notice, the wheels have a white ring on them.
Is that the alloy gator that we sell?
That's the alloy gator
okay,
that we sell. It is a wheel protector, and if you, it will protect you against certain types of curbing. Now, if you slam into the curb, it's probably not going to work. But for the average wheel damage type curbing that goes on, these wheel protectors are a wonderful option. But if you look at this, when I first heard, hey, there's a Ferrari in the shop, so we ran over with the social media team, and I was expecting a Countach-looking
Lamborghini.
Angular.
Oh, yeah, so Lamborghini
Yeah,
in the shop.
Lamborghini, right. What did I say?
You said a Ferrari in the
Ferrari,
shop.
okay, all right. And what I saw was the equivalent of a kind of a bloated SUV. Now, until you got in this car, it didn't remind you of Lamborghini, but sitting in it now, you suddenly realize you had the steering wheel with the paddles, and you had the, the cockpit type vibe. So hopefully
Wanna
there
say
will be a
something here,
market.
Pete?
Absolutely.
It
Go
sounds
ahead.
like you're just anti-SUV. Is that what's going on here?
Well, yes, and for a number of reasons. Remember, I'm the guy that likes the single commuter solo vehicles because 80% of the time, people in cars are single occupant. Why do we need another, 6 seats for additional occupants
That's
and
fair.
another 6,000 pounds in a large pickup truck if we're going to the grocery store to get milk? So I am a proponent of appropriate vehicles for the application.
Yeah. Hey, I love Martin's comment from YouTube. I know he's toward the bottom of our
Yeah.
comments, but he said that Ferrari looks like the BMW clown shoe.
Yeah, good point.
That's great. That's very good. On Instagram, McNell's one says, "Yo, what's happening?"
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. YouTube Wayne Waters says, will Tesla ever get more service centers to take care of us Tesla owners? Richard from Arizona. Building service centers is a challenge, of course, because, a lot of infrastructure. And the only answer I have to that is in Phoenix here, for example, 10 years ago, we had one service center. It was just north of us here by the Scottsdale Air Park.
Yep.
They tripled the size of that, went out to Scottsdale. Then they opened one in, Mesa, Tempe, Arizona, Glendale, Arizona. We now have one in our neighborhood, not too far from us on 19th Avenue. And that kind of expansion is taking place all over the world. The other thing that Tesla is doing, trying to keep up with the delivery system. Remember, our position has always been the EV manufacturers will not be able to keep up with their delivery systems at the pace of production. If you look at their production goals, you can just do simple math and figure that out. They're going to have to outsource to companies like us that have EV experience, give us the tools, the training, and even sell us the equipment in order to make sure that service delivery is 100%. And some of the biggest complaints that you get from the EV manufacturers or customers of the EV type products is that the service is not up to par with what they're used to in the ICE world, where you have a mature service delivery system. Lots of dealers all over the U.S., lots of independent shops, because it's been around for many, many decades.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, look at, I'll just use Ford for an example, pull it out of the air. There are probably somewhere between 15 and 20 Ford dealerships just here in the Phoenix metro area.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of thousand independent service shops in the Phoenix metro area that are all able to work on Fords.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Tesla is trying to compete against. And they've got a car that has a noticeable market share now in the U.S. market, where they've got, by the end of this year, somewhere between 30 and 40,000 cars a month coming off a warranty. So they've got,
You've got a challenge.
3 million cars on the road, 4 million cars on the road right now. I'm sorry, 5 service centers here in the Phoenix metro area is a tenth of what they need.
Mm-hmm. And what is occurring, of course, is common during any kind of disruption.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing. The independent shops, for example, the reason there aren't more is because it's a specialized skill that doesn't exist yet.
Yes.
To the levels that you need in order to provide an alternative to the factory OEM maintenance. But the short answer is yes, Tesla is continuously working on it, adding new service centers, providing even training. We're hearing at corporate that people are flying back all the time, even for their legacy cars, a Tesla Roadster.
Yes. On Facebook, Dintron said the project is great. And then PYGKLB, he says, I was in Tucson 2 weeks ago and encountered rain and snow. I think maybe you were in Tucson, Mexico or something.
We missed that. Yeah, here.
We missed it here in Phoenix.
Yeah. Luke Bauman says, good morning from YouTube. And Easy Evie in YouTube says, I drove past one of those Lamborghini SUVs in Bellevue, Washington with a gunmetal finish. And the word that came to mind was brutto. It's German for gross, in case you didn't know.
Yes.
Schrecklich would be another one, frightening. So there you have it. The rest of this article about the Ferrari is price. They've suggested that the EV will be priced from $500,000 and claim that a second electric model is already under development. Vigna, the CEO of Ferrari, claimed or called these reports a surprise and declined to confirm any of those details when confronted, of course. He says the way we define the price of a car is 1 month before we launch it. They're probably doing a cost analysis just before. All right, let's see if there's anything else here. It was the Maserati Levante bodywork that we saw in that earlier test mule or clone that we saw on the track there. All right, our next topic here is electric truck maker Nikola nears bankruptcy as the headline. And I checked the stock this morning. Apparently, it's down 99% from it, or 99, from its peak. And this morning it was at 47 cents when I checked a couple hours ago. And you mentioned it's a bit higher now.
Yeah, as of this moment, it's up 16% to 58 cents a share. In investment circles, they have something called a dead cat bounce. It's the whole idea that if a cat is thrown off a roof and it dies when it hits, it'll actually bounce a little bit before it's totally dead. That's what most of the investment professionals are saying of this particular bounce in share price. It won't last long. The fundamentals on Nikola are terrible, and they may not have enough cash to last out the first quarter of this year.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I mean, it's sad in many ways because, again, any EV that can make it to market, especially in a field like, large transport, large semis like this, is definitely needed. It is a Phoenix, Arizona-based company, and they are working with Pillsbury Winthrop, which is a law firm, that to explore options for either a sale or restructuring the company in bankruptcy. So they're trying to stay alive. They're also struggling to raise funds and help the cash balance, which apparently they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars for every unit sold at this point.
Yeah, they, you and I have seen kind of the story fairly close up because Nikola being based right here in Phoenix, and it really got started when they towed one of the Nikola semis up to the top of a hill and then let it coast downhill and led people to believe that it was running under its own power.
Yeah. And, we seem to be the catalyst for EV production manufacturing. There was the shuttle company that went out of business about 3 years ago or so.
Yep.
We ended up going to auction and buying some of their assets, power supplies, for example. Any of these EV type foreclosures are of interest to us because we're growing and we need this kind of infrastructure. The second one was Electromechanica Solo, which we're still buying things from and that we're aligning with. And this will be a third. I can see ourselves being out there and taking a look to see what's available for a purchase during this foreclosure. So the cash equivalent, they say, for those of you into the financials here, fell sharply to $198 million at the end of September, compared with $464 million at the end of 2023. And shares have lost more than 99% of their value since going public in 2020. It's below the $1 mark at this point. Mustafa El Gamal from YouTube, has anybody heard of full self-driving similar to Tesla in China using Huawei ads? There are multiple. It can now navigate to destination, go and find parking. One of them caters to China, where it pushes itself into a lane, reviewed by, from Kyle Connor, the YouTuber with Out of Spec. To me personally, China is amazing. They exceed expectations continuously.
Yeah.
And they seem to be a sleeping giant up until a few decades ago.
Yeah. And it's considering the difficulties that Tesla has had and how aggressive Elon has pushed them forward on full self-driving, on automation. The difference between 98 and 99% there may be huge. So I'm not going to read too much into the China developments yet.
Hmm.
We'll just have to see.
Yeah. Facebook, Gary Pugmire says, I have not tuned in for a few months. No sunglasses? Is this Gruber? we have promised a video as to why the glasses were important for the first 3.5 years of our social media evolution. It is coming, but yes, you're right. We're not doing the sunglasses at this point in time.
Yes. Then on YouTube, Garage Beccarati said, what killed that company, referring to Nikola,
Yeah.
is corruption.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not as much corruption as it is freewheeling spending. Spending like drunken sailors is one of the phrases.
Yes.
You know, you get all of this cash infused into the company. I remember that Nikola, we were all shaking our heads, wasn't even producing vehicles yet, but they were building a 40,000 square foot gym for the employees. And I thought, guys, it's putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Let's build these amenities after we've got a product, after we've taken care of our debt and we're profitable. And then let's share some of that. But in the meantime, a gym was not the priority before they were pushing out the semi trucks.
Well, and they've had some significant problems. They had the 4 trucks that caught fire spontaneously. Yeah. They've moved from a battery electric vehicle technology to hydrogen fuel cell technology. That's a completely different engineering technology. It seems like these zigs and zags, when you're trying to drive to an end goal, usually a straight line is the quickest way to get there. And with all these zigs and zags that they've had, it's been very, very difficult.
Yeah. All right, so the headliner, we're going to get to that now. The Lucid, the background behind us there, and it's AI generated, by the way. It did a pretty good job. If you notice, it spelled everything correctly on this image, which is still a challenge for AI.
Yes, it is.
So the article here starts, Lucid aims to be a 20% car company and 80% tech supplier. And this is according to the CEO, Pete Rawlinson, which appears to be a shift. We thought all along that they were serious about building the Lucid Air and the Sapphire and the Gravity now. But it looks like they're planning their future to be parts and licensing and a car company still, but certainly that would dominate. He says they see cars as only a small fraction of the electric vehicle startup's future business. Quoting, he said, I'd love to be 20-80, 20% doing cars and 80% licensing. This was according to Inside EVs in an interview that he did with Bloomberg in San Francisco. He said, because the vision I have for Lucid is, just as there's an Intel chip inside your laptop, there's a Lucid inside Honda and Toyota. Wouldn't that be nice, though?
That would be nice, actually.
He said Intel rode the personal computing revolution by supplying processors to the electronics companies like IBM and Apple. Not much different than NVIDIA supplying GPUs to the AI companies and AI data centers.
Exactly.
So anyway, Rawlinson thinks that Lucid could play a similar role for EVs by selling its EV powertrains to the world's car manufacturers. He didn't specify a timeline for when this ratio would begin to kick in, all of the licensing deals. But he said the big reason for Lucid selling cars at all is to market its underlying technology. So they're pretty proud of that.
We've talked in the past about Lucid being an engineering company, and it seems like this would fit better with the idea of their strength is their engineering. Time and again, whether it's Sandy Munro taking a part of Lucid, whether it's Car and Driver or Motor Trend giving them the Car of the Year, the technology comes to the forefront. Mm-hmm. It's getting to where it's pretty widely recognized in the industry that Lucid has the best tech.
Right.
And so I'm intrigued by this to see how it will come. I think we got a glimpse of it with the Aston Martin deal from a couple of years ago.
Correct. Now, for those of you that are disappointed that Lucid may not continue to make cars, that isn't the case. They're saying they are targeting 1 million cars per year by the early 2030s. It's a ways away.
Hmm.
And currently, the production run in 2024 at least was 9,000 cars. So they've got a ways to go to reach 1 million.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's anything else here. The first model, which is the Air Sedan, hit the scene in 2021. It was the first EV able to drive over 500 miles on a full battery, with actually 520 miles of range. It went over 100 miles more than any Tesla can do right now. And the top of the line Air Sapphire, that's an expensive car, by the way. I think it's still over 200K.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Air Sapphire makes 1,234 horsepower, and it hits 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, but still manages to get an EPA estimated 427 miles per charge.
I'm sure that Elon was not happy when he saw one of his competitors come up with specs that were similar to what he was advertising for the second-gen Roadster in a grocery getter, nonetheless.
Good point, yes. So Lucid has a history. They also supplied battery tech for in the past for Formula E, which is the electric racing series. And at least one automaker has signed on as a customer, like you mentioned, Aston Martin.
Mm-hmm.
This British car maker inked a $450 million deal using Lucid's motors, battery technology, and Wunderbox, as they call it, which facilitates charging and its upcoming electric models. And the startup, Lucid, said that they are in talks with other car companies. Now, one thing that Lucid doesn't have quite perfected yet is the full self-driving. That still seems to be the gift of Tesla at this point.
Right. A Tesla with AI, I could see in the future, probably not a future that's based in reality, but just pretend for me here, a Lucid powertrain, 600 miles of range, either a Honda or a Nissan or a Toyota brand, and Tesla full self-driving, all wrapped all together in one vehicle.
Mm-hmm. That would be the ultimate. So they do say that they want to license Lucid's tech to car makers so that they can manufacture components like battery packs, motors, and transmission units themselves, which now gets Lucid off the hook with building plants, additional plants.
Right.
All very costly and, slow rate of return for investment. All right. Roger Starkey's joining us from YouTube. He says, Huawei is pronounced Huawei. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's right. H-U-A, Hua. Okay.
Yeah, Huawei.
There's a restaurant in Phoenix here, Payway.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. YouTube Martin Wood says, electric article today. Lucid CEO predicts exponential growth, and it's not just from selling luxury EVs.
Yeah, that's the same type of topic for here. I did read the electric article as I was researching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting to see the exponential growth.
Yes, yeah, we all are. Yeah, we're shareholders.
Love to see that. Yes, we are shareholders. R. Dobson 222 on TikTok said we had to wait months for China to send us parts.
Interesting. Okay. Thinks Automotive is joining us from YouTube. He says, interesting that Tesla recognized the licensing path years ago to Mercedes and Toyota. And, that saved their bacon, that $50 million cash infusion.
Yes.
At the time that they were trying to launch the Model S.
That's right.
Has been reported to have forestalled the bankruptcy, which is a path that they were on at that point.
That's right. I remember that.
Martin Woods from YouTube says Lucid's Project Midsize will be their mass production EV, which will compete with the Model Y and 3. Doesn't say when that will be coming out, but that would be interesting. YouTube Garage Bekradi says, do you believe Hummer EV is going to fail? I believe we mean Hummer, right, Cass? Yeah. It's tough to predict which ones are going to fail, but a majority of them are failing rapidly, if you think about it. One of the topics was Nikola's on its way out at this point in time. Then we've got Aptera, which is, in the throes of either success or failure. It's very difficult to start a car company, folks. Tesla recognized that as well, and they were, on the verge of bankruptcy a number of times.
Well, even big companies like Ford, we were talking a little bit yesterday that Ford is potentially going to end up replacing its CFO at some point in the future. There's starting to be calls for Jim Farley's head. And a lot of it is because Ford has spent over $10 billion on EV technology. And where's Ford at? GM is selling a lot more EVs than Ford is at this point.
And there's the saving grace with any new EV startup company that is going to make it would be a term patient investor, and it's an oxymoron.
Yes.
Because investors want a return on investment. This is where Lucid actually has a distinct advantage. No one really thinks that the Saudi PIF fund is going to become impatient, recognizing that this is their future. It's no longer oil, and they need to pivot into something that's sustainable like EVs.
Well, and when you have a company that had $750 billion with a B in net profit over the last 5 years, throwing $5 or $10 billion at something is almost like you or I going down to the local Kmart and buying a stereo system over the weekend.
Right. It's like a recent, Larry Ellison quote that I saw, and he said, if you're not willing to lose $100 million, you're never going to make it big.
Yeah. Tesla Dave 86 on Instagram says, value, fun, and a great investment.
YouTube, PYG, LKB says, I'm impressed by Lucid's motor and a differential or different design, but I wonder if it will be as good as if they have to build everything beefier as a low-tier supplier. That'll be a different challenge. Yes, I agree with you there.
Well, and one of the things Peter Rawlinson was saying when it came to licensing, he doesn't just want to be a parts provider. He wants to license the engineering plans to these companies and have them build their own parts. Like Aston Martin,
right?
They pay Lucid $450 million for the right to build their own parts based on Lucid's technology. Then that means Lucid, by definition, isn't losing money because they're not spending the money to build the parts. They're just getting the royalties in.
Yeah. It seems like a wise strategy. Martin Woods says Lucid's Project Midsize should be out late 2026 and early 2027. Right? And then from TikTok, we've got Blue Dog joining us. He said, Ford doesn't make cars, only SUVs and trucks. That's where they messed up.
Mustangs. They have Mustangs. That's the only car they have.
Thank you, Cass.
Well, and the Mustang EV is an embarrassment to Mustang owners. So,
yeah, good point. All right, I think we're wrapping up here. And one final news item here is Australia is preparing to start the world's biggest renewable energy project, which will feature 60 million solar panels. I think that sounds like a large number until we looked at what it would take to provide power by blanketing the Sahara Desert with solar panels.
yes.
And that quantity was staggering.
Yeah, I think that was something around 10 billion solar panels or something like that.
Yeah.
Still, 60 million, that's a big number. That's a lot of space.
Well, thank you for joining us. Next week, we're going to have two separate podcasts. One of them will be the Roadster podcast, Monday at 11 o'clock, where we are going to honor the 3 Tesla employees that lost their lives in a plane crash 15 years ago. Next week, Monday, will be the 15-year anniversary of that. And what we're doing now is we are getting stories and testimonials from some of the people that worked at Tesla at that time, including Elon, who has not responded yet.
Yes.
But he's fully aware of it because I sent him a newsletter about 6 years ago or so, and he chimed in about how tragic that event was and how it potentially set back Tesla Roadster for a while because these guys were heavily involved in that design.
Yeah, those will be some interesting stories to tell, sad stories, but it's a very important part of the Tesla history.
So again, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner, and have a great day.